It's a beautiful day in our virtual neighborhood, which is where I am this morning. My name is Fred Wooden, and I am the interim minister to the Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation and community, whose physical location is Chandler, Arizona, but whose spiritual location is everywhere. One of the benefits of COVID has been that we've discovered that there are people who are not physically present, but spiritually present with us in ways we never dreamed. I am in Michigan this week and next week and the week after that, but I am with you now, and I'm with you in other ways through the week. And so is everyone else that you cannot touch, but is nonetheless present. So if you, like me, are not actually in Greater Phoenix right now, and you're on Zoom especially, I encourage you to sign in on the chat from Zoom and let us know where you are as you join us this morning. And I invite all of us to collect our souls and minds through the miracle of music being provided for us this day by the wonderful young Chen Bai Shui, whom we last met on Christmas Eve and is back to offer music for our experience.
Oh, wasn't that beautiful? Well, if you are at home and you have a chalice that you like to light, now's the time to draw it near. And let's all say the words together by which we light our chalice. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Good morning. Good morning. So nice to be here in person. I'm Katie Seifert, the Director of Music Ministries. Thank you to Chen Bei-Shu Young for being here on the piano. Let's join in singing for our opening hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. It's number 188 in our gray hymnal. If you are in the sanctuary, we ask that you limit your singing to a hum. And if you are online, we invite you to sing along and enjoy our opening hymn. Come, come, whoever you are. This is a song with two parts. I'm going to sing the first part, then the second part, and then we're going to combine the two parts together in a round. Please sing along. Good morning. I am Marcy Bodwin, your Director of Faith Formation Ministries here at Valley UU. So those of you that are sitting in the sanctuary, you may find that there are balls of yarn on some of the seats. I'll explain, don't worry about it. The one thing that I do want to tell you about that is the children and I are going to be leaving, and somebody's going to have to clean up in here. So take that into consideration when we do our little activity, and be kind. All right, our time for all ages. If you've got somebody at home who can come in front of their device, your computer, now is the time to do that. And our story is The Invisible Web, a story celebrating love and universal connection by Patrice Karst, illustrated by Joanne Lou Vruthoff. Good. And go. Next. And the very best news ever has begun to spread over the world, one heart at a time. Shout it from the mountaintops. Every single one of us is connected to those we love by invisible strings. That means Giovanna and her daddy are always together, even though he moved to a new house. And Omar can feel the tug of love from his parents, even though he is far away at school. Mr. Chang still feels Mrs. Chang close by, even though she died such a very long time ago. And you, at this very moment, may feel the string of someone close to you, even though they aren't there. You can't see it, but it's real. Our strings reach to everyone that we know. They travel far and wide to families and friends, classmates and coaches, to bus drivers and babysitters, neighbors and pets and aunts and uncles, grandparents and grandchildren, countless other people. And all of those people, they each have hundreds of strings.
Soaring high over rocky peaks and across 7 seas, deep into jungles and valleys and winding through the busiest cities, all of these strings crisscross one another and create a nest that covers the planet, interlacing us together, cradling us forever. It's the invisible web. The web has no borders and wraps every continent. Within it live butterflies and flowers, starfish and seahorses, lions and ants, rivers and snowstorms, and all human beings. Remember Giovanna and Omar and Mr. Chang. And of course, you and me too. Some say it even reaches to our ancestors and those we cherish in the beyond. One tug on a string sends love to every one of us, woven together in this divine tapestry. And that means just one good deed travels across the whole web, because everything is linked. Sometimes folks forget. When they can't feel their strings, they forget about the invisible web. And that's when strings get tangled up. Like when lonely Luisa isn't invited to sit with anyone at school lunch. Or when sad Stefano wishes his friend Marcos wasn't so bossy when they played. Or when Mrs. Patel struggles at work without help and, she just wants to quit. Even violence and war can erupt when too many of us forget the web. When strings are ignored, they become weak and begin to unravel. But the more people who care for their web, the stronger it gets. The web feels like millions of gentle arms holding and protecting each one of us. So many supportive fingers can always find a way to untangle strings so that love can flow again. It's up to every one of us to spread the word. Our time is right now. As we tell our family and friends, sisters will remind brothers, who will then write to cousins, who will call the great-grandparents, and they'll sort of just nod and shake their head as if they've always known. And if we remember the web, and we tug at it often, nobody will ever be left out. The people of the world will look into each other's eyes and they will smile at one another. And when one of them cries, they will all want to help. And when they do, Marcos apologizes to Stefano, and they have even more fun playing. And someone helps Mrs. Patel at work and tells her what a great job she's doing, and she remembers that she's important, and she feels happy. And Luisa feels warm and bubbly inside when the kids in her class ask her to join them under the banyan tree for lunch. She knows right then that the invisible web is real. The invisible web is alive. It breathes as we breathe, pulsating all over the earth, the single heartbeat of life and love. And do you know what that makes all of us? One more. One very big family. And so, friends in the sanctuary, now is your chance for us to create a visible connection with the people that are here with us today. So if your chair has a yarn at it, go ahead and pick it up. Make sure you hold tight to the end. Don't let it go. And you're going to share the yarn to somebody else. Please be gentle. Maybe make eye contact first. So go ahead and start sharing it. Let's make a web of love. For our friends on Zoom, change your settings to the gallery setting, if you haven't already. And then you can reach up or out or diagonal and see if you can connect to the other people in that virtual universe with you. It's a challenge on Zoom. So I apologize for leaving you with the mess, but the children and the teachers will now meet on the patio to go out to class.
Well, that was fun. Good morning. I'm Melanie Clunan-Schulte, and I want to welcome you to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation in person and on Zoom. This is a place where we don't all think alike, we don't all dress alike, we don't even all believe alike, but we are of like mind in extending an invitation to all comers who have inquisitive minds and compassionate hearts. Whatever the faith tradition of your childhood, whatever your skin color, whatever your gender identity, know that you are welcome here. If there are visitors with us today, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box if you're on Zoom, and stay after the service to meet with Reverend Fred Wooden, our interim minister. If you are in person visiting with us today for the first or second time and you're comfortable doing so, would you please stand now and let us acknowledge you? Any visitors? Well, it may be a rare week without any visitors. All right, so I want to remind those of you in the sanctuary to mute your phones and other noisemakers. And if you have a noisemaker that won't be muted, there is a comfort room to your right. You can still hear the service in there. And if you're dealing with something and could use the services of our pastoral care team, lay leaders from that team are available with a listening ear. In the sanctuary, Randy Galbraith will be available after the service. There's Randy. And on Zoom, you can message Rosalind Hawkins or send an email to pastoralcare@vuu.org anytime during the week. So I don't know if Reverend Fred will agree with me, but I think there is a real value in preaching to the choir, giving a persuasive argument to someone who already agrees with you. If you hold views that aren't supported in the dominant culture, the solidarity of someone else, particularly when expressed with eloquence, can be uplifting, countering dejection, even inspiring action in ways that may help bring about social justice. But there's a reason that the phrase preaching to the choir is often used with derision. When we speak only to those who share our ideas or on non-controversial topics with which our audience is likely to agree, there is a limit to our influence. And when everyone sticks to their own bubble of like-mindedness, hardening of ideologies and divisiveness can ensue. Now, there's a reason I'm talking about this beyond the current cultural and political climate. It's because our VUU Environmental Action Team, EAT, is sponsoring a series of meetings during the next few months about topics relevant to environmental advocacy. And in my experience, it's the same core group already knowledgeable about and interested in these topics who attend. The first session was last week, and the next one will be in exactly a month on March 13th after the service. The topic will be the health benefits and myths surrounding plant-based diets. The presenter will be me, accompanied by another physician from our congregation, oncologist Dr. Chad Sherrington. A few months ago, Reverend Fred issued a challenge for us to be mindful of how our food choices reflect our 7 principles and consider whether, when in community at least, we should be plant-based. Now, because of the pandemic, it's been a while since we've had a potluck or lunch after an annual meeting, but these things will happen again. And I know there's some skeptics among us with regard to plant-based eating. A couple of years ago, I was asked by a member of the congregation whether I thought Reverend Andy's foot fracture might be due to his vegan diet. And more recently, I noted that a sign-up sheet to bring meals to our beloved ex-administrator while she went through cancer treatment said that some vegetarian meals were okay, but she really needs protein. The data show that a plant-based diet is optimal for human health and the health of the planet. And I believe that it is indeed in keeping with our 7th principle to eat plant-based when we gather in community, including when we provide meals for the homeless. If you have doubts about this, I hope you will be present for our conversation on March 13th, because I have no intention of just preaching to the choir.
You know, I just this week remembered that Chandler, the town where the sanctuary is not just a city or even a person's name. I'm referring to Friends, of course, but it is an occupation. In fact, it was an occupation before it was a name or a place. Chandlers are those who supplied candles. We get the word chandelier from the same basis. It's a device for holding candles. And that meant that a chandler is someone responsible for keeping enough candles around. Now, that sounds like a small task, but in the days before electric or even gas light, if you didn't have candles, it would got really dark at night. And it became a very valuable function that involves safety, not just comfort. I want us to think about how your offering is a candle offered to the community called BUU, a candle in the sense that we gather them and then we hand them out to others. It could be back to you in a time of personal need. It could be to a group within the community as they work on something, whether it's food justice or the choir or faith formation. It is also when we offer a candle of light and warmth to those beyond our community. In a few moments, our wonderful pianist, Yang Chenbai Shui, will be playing some music as part of our centering time. That's when I want the ushers to move through the space in the sanctuary. But for you who are on Zoom or YouTube like me, there are ways you can make your candle brighter. You can text, you can click, you can email, you can mail, you can telephone. Whatever it is, we want you to add your light, your candle, to our chandlery, that collection of lights waiting to be used to help those making their way through the dark. And so we'll take a deep breath as we head into our time of centering. We'll think about the light within. We'll think about the times when we have been a light or we have needed a light. And we'll allow the music to take us to that place of remembering and to that place of hope. I welcome now the musical gift of our wonderful performer today. 谢谢你. That was wonderful, and thank you. I'm also going to, before I start my prayer, nope, let's back up. Before I offer a prayerful thought, I want to say thank you, 谢谢你, to our wonderful pianist, and to say that because we are now virtual as well as actual, I think those of us who are at a distance really enjoy hearing from the congregation when it's appropriate to applaud, to let us know that you are there. So I really loved hearing you earlier when Marcy was done, and I hope you will do that in the future as well. So usually I say a prayer here, and I am, but I want you to see what I'm looking at right here. I'm looking at you. I can't do that when I'm in the sanctuary because we can't bring those faces in, but I can look at you right now. And I can say hello to Mark Melrose and Irene Vitullo. And I can say hello to Rosalind and to Margaret Stewart, who was really fun to look at. And I'm feeling like the woman who used to run, Romper Room. So I can say hi, Ken and Ruthie and Leon and Janice. And I'm looking at all your smiles. And I'm thinking, it's just like the book we just heard, isn't it? Even though we're far apart physically, I know you're actually there. So like Johnny May and Janet Cantley, and oh my goodness, my old friend Evie Bowers. I'm looking at Nancy Nielsen, and I know you're going to be moving soon, and that's going to be a challenge for you. And there's Mary Erickson. What a great smile she has. And I'm thinking about Roy today, and dear Beverly McCormick, who knows how to drink out of that mug really well, and Joanne Smith. And there is a blessing in our separation sometime because it requires us to make the effort to be present. We can't do it automatically. We have to find a way to say, I'm over here, and to be seen. I see you. That's wonderful. I'm thinking of Terry Guest, who has that beautiful head of hair, and I think, oh, I wish I could grow old like that. And I think about all these other people I get to see from a distance that I don't know nearly well enough. And so how is that a prayer? It is a prayer of gratitude that despite all the distances we've had to deal with for the last year and a half, it is still possible to see one another. Now, you can see each other differently than I do. You've seen each other over years through times of struggle and triumph. You look at a person and see not just a face, but a time, a place, a passage of moments, of lived loves. I don't have that with you, but I know you have them. So I wish to lift up for you that every face I see is a story of this community, and that when you see them, you see the whole in each, like a hologram contains every ounce of the whole picture and every one of its fragments. Every one of you is Valley UU community all together, each and every one of you. Now, I know some of you aren't turning on your video, so I can't see you in person, but I know the names like Debbie Simpkins and Johnny Godfrey. I'm looking at Melanie Kasich and Dan Schulte, who is very proud of his wife, Melanie, right now, and Melissa Bush. Oh, so many names, so many stories. And I am so grateful for Mary Wolf Francis and for Linda Stenholm and for Joanne McGrath, and Judith Harper, for Gladys's iPhone that's here today, and Deanne McClanahan and Irene Rosenthal. I'm already missing you, but I'm still loving you. And for this, my prayer is one of gratitude. Katie, stop me before I start crying.
Thank you for that potent prayer. Well, February is Black History Month, and I'd like to highlight two admirable men, William Harrison Withers Jr., who was an authentic American singer-songwriter and musical icon, and a good deeds singer and doctor, Dr. Elvis Francois. Bill Weathers' website today reads in bold that lives, loves, dreams, and possibilities all connect in the enduring artistry of Bill Withers. Withers, the youngest of 6 children, was born in the small coal mining town of Slab Fork, West Virginia in 1938. He was the son of a maid and a miner, born with a stutter who struggled to fit in. His parents divorced when he was 3, and he was raised by his mother's family in West Virginia. Withers' father died when he was just 13 years old, and at 17, Bill enlisted in the U.S. Navy, serving 9 years. When he left the Navy in 1965, he moved to Los Angeles to start a music career after purchasing a guitar at a pawn shop. Withers worked as an assembler for several different companies, including Douglas Aircraft Corporation, IBM, and Ford, all while recording demo tapes with his own money and performing at nightclubs. In 1970, Withers landed his first record deal, where he created his first album, You May Know It, Just As I Am, with tracks Ain't No Sunshine and Grandma's Hands as singles. On the cover of the album, Withers is pictured at his job at Weber Aircraft in Burbank, California, holding his lunchbox. That album was a success, selling over 1 million copies and winning Withers a Grammy for Ain't No Sunshine. He was able to quit his job at the aircraft company and went on to tour and create more albums with songs we still sing and love today. Withers won 2 more Grammys for inspiring song Lean on Me, and Much Love, Just the Two of Us, and was nominated for 6 more. Inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Grammy Hall of Fame, and receiving more awards than I have time to list. Withers was known for being a regular guy. In fact, he retired from the music industry in 1985 to live a simpler life with his wife and 2 kids. Bill Withers ultimately reminds us in his life and in his music that it's the everyday that is the most meaningful. Work, family, love, loss. On March 30th, 2020, Bill Withers passed from heart complications, leaving a legacy of profound songs. To quote Bill Withers, he states, "I write and sing about whatever I am able to understand and feel. I feel that it is healthier to look out at the world through a window than through a mirror. Otherwise, all you see is yourself and what is behind you." At the start of the pandemic, ironically, at the time Bill Withers passed, Lean on Me was especially used to inspire us to reach out and help one another. One person in particular performed Withers' Lean on Me via YouTube video in honor of many nurses who work tirelessly to care for us and our loved ones. Dr. Elvis Francois, born 1985, the same year Withers retired from music, is an American orthopedic and spine surgeon and amateur singer known for making inspirational viral videos of his singing before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. He was named after Elvis Presley, as you can guess, as his mom was a fan. In April 2020, Dr. Francois released an EP titled Music is Medicine to raise funds for COVID-19 relief and was featured for his inspiring performances on GMA, The View, and Ellen, to name a few. Francois, with the help of Dr. Williams Robinson on piano, are now known as the Singing Surgeons, whose videos and music you can catch on YouTube today to be both comforted and uplifted from. May we receive the medicine in Withers' song that really could be the anthem of our community. Whether we're online or in person, lean on me. We're going to watch it performed by the gifted and giving Singing Surgeons.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have a sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. So just call me brother when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
I am so glad that it's such an upbeat song because I have a serious sermon for you today. Really important, but serious. However, it starts with a joke. It's not a joke. It's a story. It's my own story about a moment in my life. So Wendy and I are having dinner with friends, a co-worker of hers, in fact, and her husband. So not church people. It was getting toward 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. It was a 30-minute drive from their house back to our place. So I said, we really should be going. She says, our host, oh, don't leave now. It's not even 9 o'clock. I leaned forward a little bit and said, it's a school night, with my best sheepish smile. She looked puzzled. Wendy translated, Fred has to work in the morning. To which our friend said, who the hell works on Sunday morning? She knew exactly what I did for a living, but let's just say in that moment she forgot. A look of horrified embarrassment blooms on her face almost instantly as her husband all but spits out his wine laughing. We do not laugh. We wait until we get in the car and then we laugh hysterically. Last week, I began telling you secrets your minister never told you, starting with the fact that whenever we are in public, we are working. Our duty to be worthy of your trust places us, and our duty to be worthy of the trust you place in us means we can never set aside our role when we are with people who know who we are or even know what we do. Our friends knew what I did, but in the pleasure of the evening, she forgot that for a moment. She is allowed. I am not. My greatest regrets in my professional life are the few but vivid moments when I forgot. I'm not going to tell you about them. This week, I'm going to take that idea and go a little further with it, because as you go towards selecting your next minister, I want you to know about the complexity of being a clergy person. Because of our duty to be your minister, we cannot, in a very real sense, ever be your friend. Friendship is equal. You can lean on each other. Lean on this, lean on that. It's a great experience. We all need and deserve friends. But both of them depend equally on the other. That can never happen with your clergy person if that minister is true to their responsibility. Sure, you can have great times, fun times, intimate and very precious times. But the minister must pass everything through Emerson's fire of thought before saying something or doing anything, because it always has to be worthy not only of the trust that other person has in me, but every other person. Nothing is casual when we are with you. As I said last week, this can be exhausting. And we do it willingly, we do it eagerly, but it's never easy and it's always tiring. And that fatigue can become a problem with some clergy. Again, as I mentioned last week, there is sadly a long history of clergy who ignore, avoid, or deny this exhaustion, who let the boundary of duty slip from time to time, because we all need nourishment. We need friends. And we spend almost all of our time, not with family, that is, not with family, with you. And so sometimes we try to be friends with members. A colleague told me a story years ago that reminded her and me of that risk. She said there was a conflict between the member who was a friend and another member in the congregation. And she expected the minister to take her side. We were friends, but she didn't. In fact, she stood up for the other member because in this case, the other member was right and her friend was wrong. The friend felt betrayed. And well, she should. But the problem is the minister can never, ever choose one member over another for personal reasons. And of course, the friendship did not last. Far worse indeed would be the clergy who did take the side of a friend member and did so obviously that people thought they were playing favorites. Why would you trust a minister who clearly favored some over others? Now, here's another reason why it's difficult for us clergy. Many clergy think themselves wrong to feel tired and discouraged. Shouldn't we be up to the task all the time? Somehow it's a sign of our inadequacy. I've felt that myself. In former times, these men, and they were all men when I started, they would keep this to themselves. To share it would look weak. They may not even share it with their spouse, not wanting to burden that person. A few might get counseling. Many more would have a drink or two, or go to clergy meetings where they would discharge their burdens with tall tales among other brother clergy, where outbursts of anger about difficult members were heavily lubricated by more booze. I have seen this personally. And if it's not done in public in front of you, it's still not a pretty sight. More distressing and more damaging are the clergy who consciously take advantage of that trust and engage in what we call sexual misconduct. Could also be romantic misconduct. While there are indeed predatory and selfish clergy, there are others who are feeling so isolated in their role and so unable to find the intimacy they need that they take advantage of those in their congregations to give them the closeness, acceptance, and approval that the job alone cannot provide. Finally, there are those who just go whole hog into the job, make it their whole lives. They work every day, are involved in everything, throw their entire self into serving church and community. They write the newsletter, they sweep the halls, they write the sermons, they play the organ. In some ways, these are the most at risk of all because we praise that kind of service as being selfless and tireless, and even call them saints, which is what we're supposed to be, right? But they are really just as troubled and no healthier than the others. So I'm painting a rather grim portrait of a clergy life. I really don't mean that, but I want you to be aware of how complicated this role can be. But as an interim, you see, I can speak more frankly than a settled minister might. That's because the complexity of clergy life is going to be largely invisible to you. You've probably sensed it from time to time. And I know we sense it all the time. All of us clergy, that is, have had more than one person remark to us after worship, pretty good pay for an hour's work a week, eh? Now, they mean it in jest, but it's not entirely so. There is a sense in some quarters that clergy life is being paid to phone it in. In a perverse parallel of that distorted view of women, virgin or harlot, there is a distorted view of clergy as either saints who do everything or layabouts and incompetents who can do nothing. Neither are true for either women or clergy. And we all know that. But centuries of prejudice can take centuries to dismantle. Over the years I have served, I have been in counseling at least 3 times when work became, well, what Mary Oliver called the thorn that is as heavy as lead. We do put a lot of ourselves into this work, and conflict cuts deep. After giving up tobacco as a young man, I have fallen back upon it from time to time at a crisis at work. I'm not proud of that, and I haven't touched it for a very long time, but it was a crutch. I have come close to treating a member as a confidant or an intimate, fearing to burden my spouse or affect my children. None of us, clergy, are immune to the dangers I have noted. Indeed, thinking you're immune is a definite sign that you're very dangerous. So guard against it. Well, in the last generation, we clergy have used the term self-care and championed personal spiritual practices as essential to our personal and professional health. The language is now very common in recommended contracts and agreements. We talk clergy meetings. Our professional association commends them. No doubt the search committee has been told to ask candidates about self-care and personal spiritual life, and that's great. It's important. It's essential. But for me, that's just a little too general. Clergy life is mundane. Diabolus in minutiae is Latin for the devil is in the details. So I'm going to give you some details so that'll help you realize how a clergy person should and how you should encourage a clergy person to take care of themselves. It took me years to figure this out, but at some point it came to me like a flash that you, my church, whom I serve, whom I love, will never be more than 4 on my list of priorities. Here's why. If you knew I put serving you above caring for my children, would you find that noble or irresponsible? Irresponsible, I hope. I can speak from experience that congregations feel sibling rivalry. When I have explained my absence from an event or a meeting or leaving it early because I was attending an event that involved my children, more than once I was told they were disappointed that I had chosen family over them. Anyone here remember the Smothers Brothers, a comic duo from the 1960s? I give away my age. Well, there was a bit they had between them when the younger one, Tommy, said, "Mom always liked you best." That's what it felt like. When my church was saying, "Well, you like your children best." I do. I really do. Because someday I'm going to retire, and when I need help, they will be the ones there for me, not you. More important, if I'm absent from their life now, I have neglected my human duty, which disqualifies me for my clergy duty. Now, so that means you can never be more important than my kids. That doesn't mean I won't make choices that involve them, and they're all grown now. But that's just the first group that's more important than you. So if I cared for my kids but neglected my spouse, if I was not there to support her or care for her, would you not be ashamed of a minister who did that? Divorce, in some ways, is more common among clergy than among the rest of the people. The first year I was in seminary, 4 seminary couples, 4 divorced. I was terrified because I was getting married the next year. When we finally did get married, more than a little nervous about the risk we were taking, we observed that many of our most successful and admired colleagues at the big churches and the big reputations were sometimes on their 2nd and even 3rd marriages. My wife was beginning to worry. Now, I'm as ambitious for a successful career as anyone. But we both thought hard and we thought together and decided it was far better for me to serve 4 or 5 churches than to have 4 or 5 wives. Because if that's what it took, my spouse had to take precedence over my calling. When a minister is more married to the congregation than the spouse, something is wrong. More than once, my wife has observed that she may not agree with the Catholic doctrine of celibacy, but she understands why it works. The church may feel flattered by the loyalty, may even reward it, but it only covers the human cost to the clergy person and the spouse. And that again is a betrayal of the human values that we think are our communal purpose. So you can't be better than my kids. You can't be better than my spouse. That makes you number 3. How did you get to be number 4? Well, if I took care of my spouse and kids and you, but neglected my physical and mental health, if I drank too much or smoked, if I had no time for exercise or said I did, if I was gaining weight or losing it, these are just to mention 3. Would you not be worried about my well-being? In some ways, we clergy have been invited to engage in passive martyrdom. And it's a well-documented path, which, like overwork, is rationalized by churches as self-sacrifice rather than self-neglect. Many a time I have read of a clergyman from the last century who suffered what they called nervous collapse. And so they sent him away on a long voyage to recover. At least once or twice, I calculated how much worse I'd have to get before my church would justify a long rest. If you feel it's difficult to grant sabbaticals and summer vacations, I understand that. But I can attest to how hard it is to keep doing the work because it never stops. The reasons for self-neglect are many, but a church culture that expects self-neglect all but guarantees it will happen. You can now apprehend that a healthy clergy person must care for self, spouse, and children before caring for the congregation. Maybe you'll get lucky and get a single person with no kids, but then the self-care issue becomes just as important. Not only is it a moral and spiritual principle, but clergy who do not attend to the needs of their personal, marital, and family life will be worse as clergy. We serve better when we live the lives that our congregants do. They will be more vulnerable to error, less able to lead. Expecting less from them will actually get you more ministry in the long run. That's why you should be proud to say, we're number 4, because that's a responsible relationship to your clergy and their responsibilities. Now, here's the kicker. That's not just about us. In the end, it's about you too. Over the years, I've heard a few people say, and I don't mean clergy, the church is my life. And each time I heard it, I thought, if I did not say it, then you need a better life. Church is not life. Religion is not life. They are means to living your life. They are means to finding out your purpose, to clarifying your needs, to finding the connections to support you. But life is not in church, it's out there. In some ways, you could say we clergy are those who are not good at living the rest of the lives that you guys live, and we have to work in the church to take care of ourselves. But that's not the point. My point is that we are all tempted to think religion is what matters most. It isn't. The wonderful Archbishop Temple, a liberal Anglican bishop of the early 20th century, at one point said, we are gravely mistaken to think that God is at all interested in our religion. At the end of the Christian scriptures, in that wild book that so many evangelicals and fundamentalists love, the one called Revelations, the author, attributed to John, sees in a vision a new Jerusalem coming down out of the sky where humans and God will live together. In that new city, There would be no temple because there was no need for one. When we talk today, we Unitarian Universalists, when we talk about beloved community, about justice, about the ideals we crave to have come into our lives and into our world, we should also remember that if we do it right, we would go out of business because there would be no need for UUs if we all had the life that we wanted and were supported in it, if our society was egalitarian and decent and democratic and whole, if our spiritual lives didn't have to make room, maybe be wedged in between our material and commercial and economic lives. We can certainly hope for that. We can certainly work for that, and we must. But we must always also agree that it is still a long way off. But in the end, this church, this congregation, this community, all religious communities want to go out of business, to become unnecessary. And maybe if we remembered that we are just transient institutions as well as transient beings, we would be better at caring for ourselves along the way, the institution and each other and your clergy. So, in the hope that one day you will go out of business, that I can lay down this responsibility, that we can all live our lives deeply, I invite you to celebrate the fact that you're number 4 on my list. But that's still pretty good. Thank you for your time, for letting me come to you virtually, but always with heartfelt care and decency toward all of you. And I'm now going to invite Katie to gather us together with music.
Thank you, Reverend Fred. Many of you know Dr. Issei Maria Barnwell, whose songs we sing here at VUU, or perhaps you've never heard her name. Given all of her accomplishments, we can always learn more. So I'm thrilled to highlight her during Black History Month and to close with one of her beloved songs. Dr. Issei Maria Barnwell is a native New Yorker who has been living in Washington, D.C. for over 40 years, and an only child who is said to be a perfect blend of her mother, a registered nurse, and her father, a classical violinist. Dr. Barnwell studied violin for 15 years, beginning at age 2.5, and studied music with her father. There's a picture of her with her father, sang in choirs, and majored in music through high school. Barnwell went on to earn a Bachelor and Master of Science degrees in speech pathology, a Doctor of Philosophy in speech pathology, and a Master of Science in public health. Dr. Barnwell received the Honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree from several schools. To put it shortly, Dr. Barnwell is a singer, instrumentalist, composer, and actress, children's book author, producer, editor, professor and educator, sign language interpreter, member of Sweet Honey in the Rock, an a cappella's women's singing group for 34 years, and a master teacher and choral clinician in African American cultural performance. That's a lot. Barnwell's workshop, Building a Vocal Community, Singing in the African American Tradition, has been conducted on 3 continents, making her work in the field a notable source of both inspiration for singers and non-singers, and a model of pedagogy for educators, cultural activists, and historians. Barnwell's music has been performed, recorded, and enjoyed by numerous choral ensembles, individual artists, and UU churches. In 1976, she founded the Jubilee Singers at All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. It was there that she was noticed as a singer and a sign language interpreter, and then invited to audition for Sweet Honey in the Rock. 4 truisms have proven significant in Barnwell's life that I'd like to share. To whom much is given, much is required. As one door closes, another door opens. Everything matters, and say yes. Let's join together in our closing hymn, written and performed by Dr. Issei Barnwell. If you are in the sanctuary, please limit your singing to a hum. And if you are online, please sing along. And all of us enjoy this song. As we are reminded that a congregation is number 4 in a minister's life, that a minister is more than a minister, we too have those who are our top priorities, and we too are more than a congregant or community member. Yes, we are members of this vibrant community, and yes, in Dr. Barnwell's words, we are our grandmother's prayers, our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors, our dearest loved ones, and we are the Spirit of God.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Some words from the great, some words from the great W.E.B. Du Bois, leader of the African American community for many years, who reminds us even now that the prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence, not for one good deed or one single thought, but deed on deed and thought on thought, until day calling unto day shall make life worth living. We arrive at a meaningful life not at the end, but along the way. And so let us continue on the way that the meaning of life shall walk with us and each other until we meet again. And is it time? Is it time for us to extinguish the chalice? Yes, doctor, get up there and extinguish that chalice.
All right. So let us join together in the words by which we extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Those of you on Zoom, remember that there are breakout rooms that you can join, and if you're here, we can socialize out on the patio. Thanks, everybody, for being here this morning.